Can you believe that it is a year to the day today that Boris Johnson went on TV and said these words?
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
And it is pretty much a year to the day tomorrow that I got made redundant from a job that I started in January 2020 after being headhunted, and one that should have been a great opportunity where I was going to be able to use a different skill set and do something that I really enjoy doing. It didn't last long, and I remember distinctly leaving that meeting where I was told that I was no longer needed, feeling a clear, distinct feel of fear and dread of what am I going to do now? How am I going to make ends meet? That was 12 months ago, and during this time, I have learned so many things about myself. I've learned things about personal finance. So this is what I've learned from 12 months in lockdown. So little did we know last year when Boris uttered those words that we were still going to be in lockdown right now. I mean, it feels as though time has flown so quickly, but at the same time, it feels surreal that we're still in the same position that we found ourselves in this time last year, facing down the prospect, not really knowing what the full impact was going to be, of our freedoms and our liberties being limited, if you will. Now, for me personally, I've come on a little bit of a journey, and in this video, I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned from a personal finance point of view. And I hope that by me sharing this, you're going to get some benefit from this as well. You're able to pick up some nuggets and at least reflect on what you've learned in the last 12 months also. So this is the first thing that I've learned from being in lockdown in the last 12 months. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a financial minimalist at heart. I've always had a form of a budget. So I know that I've got money coming in. X goes to my essential expenditure. Y goes to my non-essential, so the things that I like to do. Then Z goes to another pot, which might be an emergency fund or even an investment fund. I've always done that at some level for a number of years now. But I think for me, having been made redundant and being in the car, having time to think, I started to think about we need to introduce some efficiencies. And financial minimalism is essentially all about being efficient with your money. It's about making sure that you don't have any wastage within your finances. And for me, it was a natural progression, a natural thing to do next, to sit down with my partner and say, look, we've got a drop in income. What do we need to cut? What services are we paying for that we're either not using to its full potential, or could we do without? And for some people, this may be a really painful process to go through. I get it. For me, it was I approached it from a dispassionate place because I thought, from a pragmatic point of view, in order for us to make sure that we're not going to be stretched financially, these things have got to go. And essentially what I ended up doing in the end was I managed to save about £150 per month on regular bills with Sky, for example, where we had a movie cinema package that we weren't using. And I picked up the phone and said, listen, this is the situation. I don't use it that often. How flexible can you be? And they reduced it down, saved some money there. And that the same thing applies for other things that we pay for on a monthly basis, the gas, the electric, so on and so forth. So financial minimalism has kind of been something that I've always done, but really thinking about financial minimalism from a pragmatic, practical point of view on a day-to-day basis in terms of my personal finances has definitely added value over the last 12 months when I look at what happened back in March 2020 and where I am right now. And I'm thankful for it because in the course of the last 12 months, I've been focused on building this YouTube channel, building my podcast audience, and basically creating a coaching agency to help people with their personal finances. And whilst it's been a slow process building this to replace a very healthy income, those cuts, that financial minimalism, those principles have been absolutely crucial to ensure that I wasn't overstretched. And this leads me on to my second lesson, the second thing that I've learned during this past year in lockdown. Now, if you follow me for a while, you know that I'm extremely passionate about the importance of an emergency fund and the fact that you absolutely need one. If you follow me here on YouTube, I speak about it on the lives, I speak about it in the videos, I speak about it, on the podcast, I speak about it on Instagram if you follow me and have ever attended any of the live sessions that I host there as well. If you've taken coaching with me, then you will know that that is one of the things that we always talk about in coaching sessions. And with all things, emergency funds or things that are just sat there on the side that are not being utilized, it is very easy to look at that thing and think, well, that money could be invested in the stock market, getting me a better return. I looked at mine so many times with that idea of, should I invest it right now? But I had to stay true to the purpose of which it was intended. And that was to be an emergency fund, a safety net should I ever need it. For the most part of my 20s and my early 30s, I spent most of that time in overdrafts, in credit card debt. And for once, I just wanted to be in an environment where if something were to happen, I didn't have to go and take out debt, because those things will cost you more in interest. It will provide a really great source of anxiety and depression when you get into the really, really high numbers and start looking at the interest rates that you're paying for these things. And whilst they are a really useful and a very helpful initial immediate sense of relief in your moment of need, the long-term impacts of holding these things can be quite profound, particularly when budgeting and your money is tight. And so for the first time, I wanted to be in a situation where I wasn't going to be reliant on those kind of things. And I was lucky to have a very healthy emergency fund. Guys, my emergency fund saved me. And it is the biggest revelation pretty much of the last 12 months, really, for me. The fact that, yes, I had this large sum of money that was just kind of sat there, not really doing much. But when I needed it, I was so thankful that I had it. I was so thankful that I didn't have to take out an overdraft or use credit cards to basically sustain our living. Credit cards that I would now have to be paying off. And look, when I got made redundant, I'm lucky that I don't have really any debts at all. I don't have any personal loans, any overdrafts. I only have the mortgage, and I had my car at the time. And my car was a healthy ticket to pay on a monthly basis. It was kind of like a thorn in my side because it was a really big amount. It started with an 8, and literally paying that amount every single month was painful for me to see. And I knew that when I got made redundant that I had about 6 months left on the car finance agreement. And at the time I made the decision to pay off the car, because at £22,500 to basically pay the balloon and own the car, I didn't know we were going to be in lockdown now. I would be making this video still in lockdown. I thought, as I was looking to build a business here on YouTube and a coaching and using some of my former professional contacts to help me grow my business, I was going to need a car, and I didn't want to give that back, have to take out another car, or a car that would then end up costing me more in tires or more in fuel because I got supercharging free with the car. So I made a decision to use part of my emergency fund to pay off that car. And it really, really did save me. So guys, one of the biggest revelations that I've had over the last 12 months in lockdown is an emergency fund. You absolutely need one. I've spoken about them a number of times. If you haven't got one, please consider it. This is the third lesson that I've learned in lockdown. And I know that many of you have looked at that and you thought, yep, absolutely. Because you know what? For many years, being in a career, working in an industry, having got qualifications to work my way up the ladder, you kind of hope to get a sense that you are indispensable, but unfortunately that isn't true. And for years, I realized that I needed other forms of income to ensure that I wasn't reliant on that one stream of income for my livelihood. And one thing that COVID has definitely taught me, and I'm sure that it's taught many people watching this, is that you cannot rely on one source of income for your financial security. You just can't. You have to have multiple streams of income. And one of the things that I remember thinking in the car on the way back home, having been made redundant, was, I don't want this to happen again. And truth be told, it's something that I'd been thinking about and I knew was always going to be a risk for probably, 3 or 4 years prior to that point of being made redundant. It's something that I never really had the courage to pursue though. And I wish that I had started things like this on YouTube much, much earlier when I was thinking about it originally 3, 4 years ago, but I didn't have the courage. And, they talk about golden handcuffs. Well, golden handcuffs are lovely, but they can also help you sink. But they're hard to break away from. And that was certainly the case for me. But multiple streams of income are really, really important. And, over the past 12 months, that's what I've tried to do here with this channel. Well, some of the ways that I make money on this channel are YouTube AdSense, clearly. I have coaching now. My course also starts to make money on a monthly basis. Also, I do workshops here and there. Some places I also have some partnerships and sponsorships that happen on the channel alongside some of my affiliate links. So multiple streams of income are really, really important. In this past year, I've managed to grow about 6 altogether. I could do a separate video talking about what those are if you guys are interested. But, it's really, really important to have multiple streams of income. And that is something that I've learned is absolutely crucial moving forward. Have I got it perfect? Absolutely not. Because I think, even here on YouTube being the main source of my traffic, if anything ever happens to YouTube, then potentially I could be at greater risk either way. So there still needs to be some diversification. It's like investments, right? You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. The same thing applies here. So that is something that I'm actively trying to do to diversify my income stream. So they're coming from different sources, not just from YouTube specifically. That is a work in progress. But guys, please consider additional income streams. One of the things that I have got coming on the channel is a collaboration with another YouTube channel, which we talked about, Amazon FBA. I hope to bring that to you guys in April. And look, on the topic of financial minimalism, before we finish this video off, one of the things that I often get asked when I'm doing coaching is, well, look, I've got my emergency fund. Where should I put this money? And, we're talking about financial minimalism as a concept, right? It's all about making sure that you don't have any fat, but it's also about making sure that you've got your money working as hard as possible for you. Now, with your emergency fund, you should not be investing this money because the idea is you need access to it immediately. If you invest it, it's probably going to take you a week to get hold of that money. So you need to have immediate access. One of the best places at the moment that are offering the highest rate of interest is Chip. I believe they are offering 1.25% on instant access on sums up to £5,000 right now. I will leave a link. I will pin it in the description and in the comment section. So if you do have some money lying around in an emergency fund that isn't really doing much at this point in time, you can use that link to open an account with them and get a better rate of interest. It is the highest rate on the market, I believe, at this point in time. So feel free to use that link to get yourself a better rate. But guys, those are just some of my lessons from the last year in lockdown. What have yours been? I'm sure that you've learned something. I'm sure that there are a few things that have made you have almost like an epiphany, that have made you sit up and think, I'm either glad that I had that, or I wish that I had that, or I wish that I had done this. Let me know what your lessons for the last 12 months are and what they have been during lockdown. I like to be more open about some of this stuff, and I like to talk about more of this on the channel, not necessarily investment related stuff, but branching out into the wider personal finance arena. Guys, let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not listened to the podcast this week, there it is right there, guys. We're talking about, is diversification actually worth it? This is from a question from the live Q&A on Sunday. Go and check that out. I just reiterate some of my points. If you didn't catch that live, that podcast episode is going to give you the lowdown and some of my thoughts right there. But guys, as always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support. Don't forget, we are very, very close approaching the end of the tax year, okay? I think we're about 12 or 13 days out right now. So make sure you use your allowances. Make sure that you bear in mind that there's also, I think there's a bank holiday in between as well. I have got a workshop this Saturday between 6 and 8. That's the artwork for it right there. If you want to attend, we'll give you all the information that you need to know about ISAs, how they work, how the rules more importantly work, so make sure you check it out. But as always, remember, money is a tool, life is for living. Have an amazing week. I will speak to you on Friday.